In 1985, I had a choice to either graduate early or spend a semester in Paris. I chose Paris. Back then, People's Express just started flights to Belgium, and that became my plan. New York, Belgium, Paris. In my mind, it was perfect. The flight, however, was canceled. The next morning, I was at Pan Am, hoping to get a standby ticket to London. We landed in Heathrow, took the underground to Victoria Station, waited till the morning and got a train up to Dover. From Dover, it took a hovercraft over to Boulogne-sur-Mer, and from there, a train down to Paris. I remember having my head pressed up against the glass of the train, looking at the countryside, thinking, a cow is a cow. This brought me some sort of comfort. I was so far away from home, and this was definitely the first time I was that far away from my family. And usually I would go to Pittsburgh, if anything. But here I was in France. And once I checked in, I was given a hotel room to stay in because we were eventually supposed to find a place to live. Went out with the class, I guess, at least people in the same situation that I was. And we had a wonderful dinner. At that time, I was able to use the only French I knew. Où est la salle de bain? Where's the bathroom? From day one, I walked around Paris. It was amazing. The air, the light, the architecture. I did no research. I didn't look at a map. I didn't have a map before I got to Paris. The only thing I did was to learn French tapes, and I only listened to that while I slept on the flight over. Being in Paris, you saw the sky everywhere you went. The only skyscraper was Tour Montparnasse, and nobody went to Montparnasse. The buildings ran the gamut from the 1500s to the 1980s. If I were to pick one building in Paris to fall in love with, it would be 29 Avenue. It was sexy, strong, unique. This building was voluptuous. I still think of this building to this day. All of the art and old structures had me gaga.
And they just show up. It could be you don't know the time, you don't know the day. Just like
so if you like hang out
and we used to.
We would troll all of the hip restaurants, the ones people knew like La Chape Noire, those you didn't, like a Puyo. That restaurant would stay open until 5 a.m. Bill had his name on a plaque in one of the booths because he was there so often. He was definitely their favorite customer. I usually walked around Paris, and instead of getting on the metro, I'd buy a baguette. I even used that wonderful pastry as a measurement device. From my room in the 16th arrondissement to the school, which was in the 15th arrondissement, it would take me about a half a baguette to walk. From school to Pigalle was a whole baguette. Eating baguettes kept me from thinking about all the walking.
Na na
Down the block from Le Chat Noir were various sex shops, and the Moulin Rouge. That place really needed to be looked at from just the right angle to grasp its grandeur. Gal was where one of the teachers lived. The Batman and Robin of graphic design was Bill Butt and Heimo Kindler. They worked at Le Book and were rock stars. They had a show of their work at the Pompidou Center. Parties at Bill's flat, students, professionals always hung out there. Some of his ex-students eventually lived there. Bill's apartment was the camping ground for all of the students for as long as he lived there. Some would come for visits and others would live there for years. During the good years, everything was flowing. He built a section in the hallway just for a DJ to spin records. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, a dining room, a living room. You could fit a lot of people in there. From his terrace, you can see all of Paris. From the Tour Montparnasse to Sacré. I was living in the Chambre de Bon. It was on the 6th floor of a walk-up. It was one room with a bed, a table, hot plate, and sink. I did have a terrace, however. It was 18 inches deep, but it was a terrace. Everyone else on the floor. However, for showers, I had to go over to the American church. It was near the school. Let's just say I didn't shower every day. In Paris, you studied and hung out with designers. conversations about design and the idea that concept was king. When I got back to New York, I was all about concept and execution. That led me down a path that was the total opposite of the administration. To this day, a good concept is still my bag. Metros in Paris were an education in both how to ride them and station design. The metro stop at Place de Concorde had the whole Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen tiled throughout the platform. Every tile had only one letter, and they were all put together. And I guess eventually in a lifetime you would be able to read it, provided that you understood French. Trains were quieter than the ones in New York. I mean, their wheels were rubber. I loved the metro. They were mazes of pathways and tunnels. In a way, you were in control. You had to open the doors yourself. The maps were your North Star to your destination. They were truly transportation's blessing. All you had to do was miss the last metro and experience the craziness of the night bus. I remember one night we were on the metro going somewhere. In the packed car, I saw a gentleman put his hand in Bill's pocket. I gently touched the man's hand and gave him the international sign for that's not a good idea. He became loud and boisterous, saying things in French I could not understand, nor did I care to. He left the car at the next stop, continuing his Frenching all the way down the platform. I shrugged. Bill said, "It's cool, guy." Off to wherever we were going. Around the time I was in Paris, IMP was selected to work on the reorganization of the Louvre. His idea was to have glass pyramids in the garden of the Louvre, and that would be the entrance to the museum. The Parisians were up in arms. But by the time I went back in the 90s, the pyramids were revered. To me, all of the museums were wonderful. Each one opened my mind to waves of ideas and art. Ed Rushka was implanted in my brain at the Modern Museum at the Trocadero. They were the set of buildings across the Seine from the Tour d'Eiffel. About a quarter of the baguette walk away from my home, the one Rue Pajou. The Louvre was stunning, both in architecture and body of work. There were paintings upon paintings upon paintings. It was like a jumbo printed art book. I never knew the paintings we talked about in the dark lecture halls in New York were so vibrant and large. It seemed every important piece of art was there, somewhere. It was at the Louvre I had to edit my eyes. I couldn't look at everything. Each visit I would look at one and then walk by several others. I was thinking of brain survival. A museum I saw being built but wasn't open while I was a student was the Musée d'Orsay. It was a train station they were converting into a museum of French art, dating from 1848 to 1914, covering Impressionist and Post-Impressionist work, paintings, furniture. This is where my mind wallowed before the Pompidou. Paris had museums upon museums. Every artist, famous of course, had their own museum. Picasso, Chagall. For me, the showstopper, as museums go, was the George Pompidou Center. The architecture was raw but functional. You saw the mechanics of the building on the outside, painted in primary colors. It screamed, "This is real." Its content was fresh also. It was because of an exhibition at the Pompidou Center I was able to grasp the connections of art, from cave paintings through 20th century art. That show allowed me to go beyond Manet, Monet, and see how abstract and other art fit into life and living. Even though my family helped out financially while I was in Paris, I still had to go back during Christmas break so I could make a little bit more money so I could finish off the semester. Again, People's Express to the rescue. Once I got back to America, I went straight to Parsons. Talked to a couple of people there, and just to say hello, really. On my way home, I stopped off at a donut shop. I started speaking and I started asking for a donut and tea, and everyone just continued to look at me. And again, I repeated my order. I asked for a donut and tea. They weren't moving. It took me a little bit of time to realize that I had been speaking to them in French. I did not know that I knew that much French, nor did I know that I could speak that much French. But it was really funny afterwards when I started speaking English to them, and then they understood what my needs were. I never thought I would go back to France. I loved New York too much to leave. But I also didn't think that with the education and the work that I had done to this point, because I was the art director of an international trade music magazine called Cashbox, and I was the art director of a computer company called Found Technologies. I was an art director of a newspaper in Paris, and of course I was educated in Paris, and I thought that on one level would make me some sort of a star. But when I was looking for a job, I was only offered pay stub work, mechanical work. My friends were getting design jobs, or design assistant jobs, but I wasn't. So I had decided I'll just go on my own, and I opened AVD Graphics, which was another adventure for another time. What Paris does right is death. The cemeteries are more like parks that celebrate lives from the past. A family would picnic there, not because a family member was there, but because it was a beautiful place to be. Monarchs, however, they took the remember me to an amazing level. Their crypts were topped off with life-size marble statues of themselves and usually their wives, mostly laying down, sometimes praying. Each period had their techniques and every one was exquisite. They even had a royal version of Shoeless Joe Jackson. Paris is where I learned to celebrate death. Cemeteries were everywhere. They were for the living as well as for those who've passed. I started rubbing as many gravestones as I could afford to. Baudelaire, Morrison, everyone. On the Ile de Cité, behind Notre Dame, is the Memorial des Martyrs de la Déportation. From this point, 200,000 people were deported to Nazi concentration camps during World War II. You walk down a narrow staircase to a crypt which leads to a rotunda that includes two chapels that contain earth and bones from people from the concentration camps. The narrow chamber is lit by 200,000 crystals representing the people who were deported from this point. At the end of the tunnel is a single bright light, and ashes from the camps are contained in urns at opposite ends of the room. On the opposite side of the entrance, of course after you've gone downstairs, there's a gate that overlooks the Seine. I'm imagining that's the direction that the ships took off to get to Germany. It was very claustrophobic and dark and an emotionally wrought memorial. It was the first time that I've gone into a memorial. I always just looked at them. There was never any interaction between me and what I'm supposed to be feeling at this time. I never thought a memorial could be more than just something you would revere. This one had you bring your emotions as well as your body into it. It was very, very powerful, and I think of that way before I think of the gorgeous Gothic church that is behind it, which is Notre Dame. The thing about Paris is that there is so much art there, but it's not sacred. There was one monument that was there that was a replica of the new flame that they put on the Statue of Liberty. And at this time, Lady Di had passed away in Paris. And everyone went there and they started to put up pictures and sayings and flowers, and there was no sanctity of the art. It was just a place for the people to get together and mourn and celebrate. Not of the flame on the top, but about the woman who they loved. I'll keep walking through my memories.